Hare Krishna, everybody. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books, where wherever I am, I read every single day. Of course, we missed one day recently, but anyway, for the last year and a half. Well, actually for the last 6 years, but for the last year and a half, live streamed. I haven't missed one day except for the day after the long haul flight this time. Before then, it was only the long haul flights were the days I missed. I was discussing this point with Nimai Pandit Prabhu, who I've known since a long time. We were in Soh Street together in the 90s. And he's here to hear. And we were just discussing. And the Sankirtan traveling party from Cardiff, from Wales, is here, minus their fearless leader, Gopal Roy, who was just driving back to Cardiff and then taking a plane somewhere and having to do some important thing for the Welsh Yatra. But I was talking to them about, I was reminiscing actually with Nimai Pandit, my old friend, and we were talking about the importance of and the effect of reading Srila Prabhupada's books, and especially his purports. And I started to read a sample from what I wrote this year in my offering to Prabhupada, and I got halfway through what I was going to read. Not a big thing, but I decided better tune in to all of you out there in cyberspace, because I'd like you to hear this, in case you haven't heard it already. I wrote this. Your books are my life and soul, Srila Prabhupada, for I feel your presence in sound as I read them out loud to myself and to others every day without fail. You confirmed this truth when you were asked the question in San Francisco, what will happen when you die? Your response? I will never die. I will live forever in my books. A flood of nectar flows from the Hare Krishna Mahamantra and from every syllable of Bhagavad Gita as it is, Srimad Bhagavatam, and Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. And your Bhaktivedanta purports turn that flood into a tsunami of bliss. This nectar is the greatest gift one person can give to or receive from another. Only such a tsunami, caused by the mass distribution of these literatures and the application of their teachings by your sincere followers, can extinguish the blazing fire of hate, lying, dissension, violence, and political fear-mongering, a fire which is laying to waste the dignity of human society throughout the world, poisoning the hearts of today's once innocent but now jaded masses. How did you envision such a likely inundation would come to pass? Lord Chaitanya's spiritual master instructed him, therefore, that one must read Srimad Bhagavatam regularly and with scrutiny to gradually become attached to the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. C.C. Adi Lila 773 purport. Then, these are the way Prabhupada envisioned that this would come to pass, what I just wrote. Preaching is the best service to the Lord. The Lord will immediately be extremely satisfied with one who engages in this service of preaching Krishna consciousness. This is confirmed by the Lord himself. In Bhagavad Gita 1869, Nachatasman manusheshu kaschin me priyakrita maha. There is no servant in this world more dear to me than he, nor will there ever be one more dear. If one sincerely tries his best to spread Krishna consciousness by preaching the glories of the Lord and his supremacy, even if he is imperfectly educated, he becomes the dearmost servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is bhakti. As one performs this service for humanity without discrimination between friends and enemies, the Lord becomes satisfied and the mission of one's life is fulfilled. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore advised everyone to become a guru devotee. Shall I repeat that again? Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore advised everyone to become a guru devotee and preach Krishna consciousness. Yari deka tari kaha Krishna upadesh. That is the easiest way to realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By such preaching, the preacher becomes satisfied, and those to whom he preaches are also satisfied. This is the process of bringing peace and tranquility to the entire world. Srimad Bhagavatam 7.6.24 purport. And that's just a drop in the bucket of things that Prabhupada said in his purports to confirm this point. And why you taste this inconceivable and unimaginable nectar when you hear. No? Isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's that. So Sanatana Goswami was the senior disciple of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu directly spent more time speaking to him and explaining the full philosophy than anyone else on the planet. And part of the result of what he, and then he empowered him to write what he told him, to remember it first of all, and then write it down and elaborate on it by confirming from the revealed scriptures the conclusions of Lord Chaitanya's teachings, because he only wrote down 8 verses. Briha Bhagavatamrita was the first book that Sanatana Goswami wrote right after he heard these instructions from Lord Chaitanya, and then he wrote Sri Krishna Lila Stava, which is a very small book meant to offer 108 obeisances to Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan, Braja Lila. And in very simple vocative Sanskrit, like sutras. And this is the 107th out of 108 obeisances. And it was offered to the Srimad Bhagavatam, which gives us the pastimes of Krishna in Vrindavan. It goes like this. Sarva Shastabdi Piyusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadya Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavata Prabho Kalidwando Ditaditya Sri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshakshadayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Shri Krishnaya Namostame. I bow down to you who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Mat Sangin Madguru Man Mahadana Man Nisadaga Mad Bhagya Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu Sadutat Dayin Atini Chuchata Kada Hanamun Chagadachin Mam Premnarit Kantayospuda. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly. O exalter of the most fallen. That's us, in case you didn't notice. I'll repeat this again. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly. O exalter of the most fallen. Please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. There it is. If you just do this, then you will enter into Srimad Bhagavatam. You'll be able to understand it, remember it, repeat it, and live in it. That's the goal of Krishna consciousness. Because the Bhagavatam is Krishna. Descriptions of, especially the 10th canto, which we will be reading tonight, the abode of Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So the Bhagavatam is a momentous drama. It's a drama of the history of the universe. And every chapter is like an act in that drama. So we're on the 54th verse of the 11th chapter of the 10th canto. There are 90 chapters in the 10th canto, which is dedicated to the pastimes of Krishna. The Bhagavatam has 335 chapters, 18,000 verses. And the first 9 cantos describe all the major incarnations of Krishna and their pure devotees and their pastimes and the understanding, how to understand them, so that we can understand as much as possible the potencies of Krishna and how they act and just how dependent we are on them. And then, out of the 18,000 verses, there's like between 4,000 and 5,000 verses, which is the 10th canto, dedicated just to Krishna. So Krishna is, just looking at it from that statistical point of view, Krishna is by far the most prominent person in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which confirms his own statement in the Bhagavad Gita that he is the summum bonum, the source of everything. So this text is from the 11th chapter. What's the name of that chapter? Childhood Pastimes of Krishna. Starting with text 54. We'll come to the end of this act very soon, and we all want to applaud, like you do in a theater when the act is finished. If it was a good act, it was a good thing. Because I guess sometimes they throw, like tomatoes or rotten eggs or something. That won't be the case in this act. Okay, text 54. When the cowherd men and women heard about the killing of Bakasura in the forest, they were very much astonished. Upon seeing Krishna and hearing the story, they received Krishna very eagerly, thinking that Krishna and the other boys had returned from the mouth of death. Thus they looked upon Krishna and the boys with silent eyes, not wanting to turn their eyes aside now that the boys were safe. They have a saying, couldn't take our eyes off of him. Purport. Because of intense love for Krishna, the cowherd men and women simply remained silent, thinking of how Krishna and the boys had been saved. The cowherd men and women looked upon Krishna and the boys and did not desire to turn their eyes aside. Text 55. The cowherd men, headed by Nanda Maharaj, began to contemplate. It is very astonishing that although this boy Krishna has many times faced many varied causes of death, by the grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it was these causes of fear that were killed instead of him. Purport. The cowherd men innocently thought, because our Krishna is innocent, the causes of death that appeared before him were themselves killed instead of Krishna. This is the greatest grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text 56. Although the causes of death, the Daityas, were very fierce, they could not kill this boy Krishna. Rather, because they came to kill innocent boys, as soon as they approached, they themselves were killed, exactly like flies attacking a fire. Purport. Nanda Maharaj innocently thought, perhaps this boy Krishna formerly killed all these demons, and therefore in this life they are envious and are attacking him. But Krishna is a fire, and they are flies. And in a fight between fire and flies, the fire is always victorious. Fighting is always taking place between the demons and the power of the Supreme Personality. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chaduskritam. Anyone who, Bhagavad Gita 4:8, anyone who is against the control of the Supreme Personality of Godhead must be killed, life after life. Ordinary living beings are subject to karma, but the Supreme Personality of Godhead is always victorious over the demons. Text 57. The words of persons in full knowledge of Brahman never become untrue. It is very wonderful that whatever Garga Muni predicted, we are now actually experiencing in all detail. Purport. The purpose of human life is indicated in the Brahma Sutra, Atato Brahma Jigyasa, to make one's life perfect in the past, present, and future. One must learn about Brahman. Because of intense affection, Nanda Maharaj could not understand Krishna as he is. Garga Muni was able to know everything, past, present, and future, by studying the Vedas. But Nanda Maharaj could not understand Krishna directly. Because of his intense love for Krishna, he forgot who Krishna was and could not understand Krishna's potency. Although Krishna is Narayana himself, Garga Muni did not disclose this. Thus Nanda Maharaj appreciated the words of Garga Muni, but because of his deep affection, he could not understand who Krishna was. although Gargamuni had said that Krishna's qualities would be exactly like those of Narayana. Text 58. In this way, all the cowherd men, headed by Nanda Maharaj, enjoyed topics about the pastimes of Krishna and Balaram with great transcendental pleasure, and they could not even perceive material tribulations. Purport. Here is an instruction about the result of studying or discussing the Krishna Leelas that appear in Srimad Bhagavatam. Sadyo ridya varujyate tra kritibik sushushubis takchanat. Bhagavatam 1:1-2. Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda in Vrindavan appeared like ordinary persons of this material world, but they never felt the tribulations of this world, although they sometimes met many dangerous situations created by the demons. This is a practical example. If we follow in the footsteps of Nanda Maharaj and the Gopas, we can all be happy simply by discussing the activities of Krishna. Anarto pashamam sakshad bhakti yoga madhoksaje lokasya janato vidbangs chakre satvata sangitam. Bhagavatam 176. Vyasadeva has given this literature so that everyone may understand one's transcendental position simply by discussing Bhagavat Katha. Even at the present moment, everyone everywhere can be happy and free from material tribulations by following Srimad Bhagavatam. There is no need of austerities and penances, which in this age are very difficult to perform. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has therefore declared, Sarvatma Snapanam Padam Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam. By our Krishna consciousness movement, we are trying to distribute Srimad Bhagavatam so that anyone in any part of the world can be absorbed in the Krishna consciousness movement by chanting and hearing about the activities of Krishna and be free from all material tribulations. Text 59. In this way, Krishna and Balaram passed their childhood age in Brajabhumi by engaging in activities of childish play, such as playing hide and seek, constructing a make-believe bridge on the ocean, and jumping here and there like monkeys. Thus end the Bhakti purports of the 10th canto, 11th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Childhood Pastimes of Krishna. Haribo! Haribo! Encore! 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 Okay, we're having an encore. Chapter 12. The killing of the demon Aghasura. This chapter describes in detail Krishna's pastime of killing Aghasura. One day, Krishna wanted to enjoy a picnic lunch within the forest, and therefore he went out early into the forest with the other cowherd boys, accompanied by their respective groups of calves. While they were enjoying their picnic, Aghasura, the younger brother of Putana and Bakasura, appeared there, desiring to kill Krishna and his companions. The demon who had been sent by Kamsa assumed the form of a python, expanding himself to a length of 8 miles and the height of a mountain. his mouth seeming to extend from the surface of the earth to the heavenly planets. Having assumed this feature, Aghasura lay on the road. Krishna's friends, the cowherd boys, thought that the demon's form was one of the beautiful spots of Vrindavan. Thus they wanted to enter within the mouth of this gigantic python. The gigantic figure of the python became a subject for their sporting pleasure, and they began to laugh, confident that even if this figure were dangerous, Krishna was there to protect them. In this way they proceeded toward the mouth of the gigantic figure. Krishna knew everything about Aghasura, and therefore he wanted to forbid his friends to enter the demon's mouth. But in the meantime, all the cowherd boys, along with their groups of calves, entered the mouth of that gigantic figure. Krishna was waiting outside, and Aghasura was waiting for Krishna, thinking that as soon as Krishna entered, he would close his mouth so that everyone would die. While waiting for Krishna, he refrained from swallowing the boys. In the meantime, Krishna was thinking of how to save the boys and kill Aghasura. Thus he entered the mouth of the gigantic Asura, and when he was within the demon's mouth along with his friends, he expanded his body to such an extent that the Asura suffocated and died. After this, Krishna, by casting his nectarian glance upon his friends, brought them back to life. And with pleasure, they all came out unhurt. Thus Krishna encouraged all the demigods, and they expressed their pleasure and happiness. For a crooked, sinful person, there is no scope for Sayujya Mukti, or becoming one with the effulgence of Krishna. But because the Supreme Personality of Godhead entered the body of Aghasura, by his touch, this demon got the opportunity to merge into the existence of the Brahman effulgence and thus attain Sayujya Mukti. When this pastime was performed, Krishna was only 5 years old, completely destroying the theory that you could become God by doing austerities or Krishna didn't need to do anything. 1 year later, when he was 6 years old and he stepped into the Poganda age, this pastime was disclosed to the inhabitants of Braj. Parikshit Maharaj inquired, why is it that this pastime was disclosed only 1 year after only 1 year? After 1 year, and yet the inhabitants of Braja thought that it had been performed that very day. With this question, the 12th chapter ends. Text 1. Shukadeva Goswami continued, O king, one day Krishna decided to take his breakfast as a picnic in the forest. Having risen early in the morning, he blew his bugle made of horn and woke all the cowherd boys and calves with its beautiful sound. Then Krishna and the boys, keeping their respective groups of calves before them, proceeded from Brajabhumi to the forest. Text 2. At that time, hundreds and thousands of cowherd boys came out of their respective homes in Brajabhumi and joined Krishna, keeping before them their hundreds and thousands of groups of calves. The boys were very beautiful, and they were equipped with lunch bags, bugles, flutes, and sticks for controlling the calves. Text 3. Along with the cowherd boys and their own groups of calves, Krishna came out with an unlimited number of calves assembled. Then all the boys began to sport in the forest in a greatly playful spirit. Sounds like fun, huh?
Okay.
Wouldn't you like to go there? Oh yeah. Purports. In this verse, the words Krishna Vatsaya Asankyatai are significant. The word Asankyata means unlimited. Krishna's calves were unlimited. We may speak of hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions, billions, trillions, tens of trillions, and so on. But when we go further to speak of numbers impossible for us to count, we are speaking of unlimited numbers. Such unlimited numbers are indicated here by the word asankyatai. Krishna is unlimited. His potency is unlimited. His cows and calves are unlimited. And his space is unlimited. Therefore, he is described in Bhagavad Gita as Parabrahman. The word Brahman means unlimited, and Krishna is the supreme unlimited, Parabrahman. Therefore, we should not consider the statements of this verse to be mythological. They are factual, but inconceivable. Krishna can accommodate an unlimited number of calves in an unlimited measure of space. This is neither mythological nor false. But if we study Krishna's potency with our limited knowledge, that potency will never be possible to understand. Tak Shri Krishna namadi nabhaved grayam indriyahi. Our senses cannot perceive how he could keep an unlimited number of calves and cows and have unlimited space in which to do so. But this is answered in the Laghu Bhagavatamrita 1.5.15. I don't know why the sound is not there. Maybe I can... I restarted this computer and a sound thing, which allows me to... Okay, I'll just do this. Don't mind. 1 second. I'm going to stop the sounds coming in and interrupting this nectar, if I can. Sound. Show volume in menu bar. Unchecked. There it is. Okay. So now we won't be interrupted anymore. Okay. Our senses cannot perceive how he could keep an unlimited number of calves and cows and have unlimited space in which to do so. But this is answered in the Laghu Bhagavatamrita 1.5.15. That's Rupa Goswami. Evam prabho priyanam cha damnas cha sangsayasya cha avichintya prabhavad atrakinchin nadurgatam. Here Sri Rupa Goswami states that since everything about Krishna is unlimited, nothing is impossible for him. It is in this sense that we have to understand this verse. And further to that, Jiva Goswami, who's considered to be the greatest philosopher ever to live on the earth, he states in his Sandarbhas that unless one accepts the achintya feature of Krishna, you can't understand him at all. Meaning, achintya doesn't mean you can't understand anything. It means you can't understand everything about Krishna. But to the extent that you actually accept that Krishna is inconceivable and therefore can do anything, to that extent you can understand Krishna's pastimes. Text 4. Although all these boys were already decorated by their mothers with ornaments of kacha, gunja, pearls, and gold, when they went into the forest, they further decorated themselves with fruits, green leaves, bunches of flowers, peacock feathers, and soft minerals. Text 5. All the cowherd boys used to steal one another's lunch bags. When a boy came to understand that his bag had been taken away, the other boys would throw it farther away to a more distant place, and those standing there would throw it still farther. When the proprietor of the bag became disappointed, the other boys would laugh, the proprietor would cry, and then the bag would be returned. Purport, sound familiar? That's where it came from. This kind of playing and stealing among boys still exists even in the material world, because this kind of sporting pleasure is present in the spiritual world, from which this idea of enjoyment emanates. Janmad yasya yataha, Bhagavatam 1.1.1, Vedanta Sutra 1.1.2. The same enjoyment is displayed by Krishna and his associates in the spiritual world, but there the enjoyment is eternal, whereas here on the material platform it is temporary. There the enjoyment is Brahman, whereas here the enjoyment is Jada. The Krishna consciousness movement is meant to train one how to transfer oneself from the Jada to the Brahman, because human life is meant for that purpose. Atato Brahma Jigyasa, Vedanta Sutra 1.1.1. Krishna comes down to teach us how we can enjoy with him on the spiritual platform, in the spiritual world. Not only does he come, but he personally displays his pastimes in Vrindavan and attracts people to spiritual enjoyment. That's what we're having right now, in case you didn't notice. This is spiritual enjoyment. To enjoy hearing about Krishna together with other devotees who are enjoying hearing about Krishna. This is the process. By this process, one can become attached to Krishna. And to become attached to Krishna is the goal of human life. So it's not just faith, it's not just an idea. If you do it, then you taste it, and then you know it. It's true. Just like you have a nice cake. Look at this cake. It must taste very good. Look at what it looks like. But unless you taste it, you can't know just by looking at it. Krishna comes down to teach us how we can enjoy with him on the spiritual platform in the spiritual world. Not only does he come, but he personally displays his pastimes in Vrindavan and attracts people to spiritual enjoyment. Text 6. Sometimes Krishna would go to a somewhat distant place to see the beauty of the forest. Then all the other boys would run to accompany him, each one saying, "I shall be the first to run and touch Krishna. I shall touch Krishna first." In this way they enjoyed life by repeatedly touching Krishna. Text 7 through 11. All the boys would be differently engaged. Some boys blew their flutes, and others blew bugles made of horn. Some imitated the buzzing of the bumblebees, and others imitated the voice of the cuckoo. Some boys imitated flying birds by running after the birds' shadows on the ground. Some imitated the beautiful movements and attractive postures of the swans. Some sat down with the ducks, sitting silently, and others imitated the dancing of peacocks. Some boys attracted young monkeys in the trees. Some jumped into the trees, imitating the monkeys, and some made faces as the monkeys were accustomed to do. And others jumped from one branch to another. Some boys went to the waterfalls and crossed over the river, jumping with the frogs. And when they saw their own reflections on the water, they would laugh. They would also condemn the sounds of their own echoes. In this way, all the cowherd boys used to play with Krishna, who is the source of the Brahman effulgence. For jnanis desiring to merge into that effulgence, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead for devotees who have accepted eternal servitorship, and who, for ordinary persons, is but another human ordinary child. The cowherd boys, having accumulated the results of pious activities for many births, many lives, were able to associate in this way with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. How can one explain their good fortune? Purport. As recommended by Srila Rupa Goswami, Tasmat kenap vyapayena manak krishne niveshayet. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1-2-4. Somehow or other, whether one thinks of Krishna as an ordinary human child, as the source of the Brahman effulgence, as the origin of Paramatma, or as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one should concentrate one's full attention upon the lotus feet of the Lord. That is also the instruction of Bhagavad Gita, 1866. Sarvadharman parityaja, mamekam sharanam vraja. Srimad Bhagavatam is the easiest way of directly approaching Krishna. Shall I repeat that? You wouldn't mind? You wouldn't mind? Nobody's objecting. Okay, we'll repeat it. Srimad Bhagavatam is the easiest way of directly approaching Krishna. Ishvara sadvidya avarudyate tra kritibi sushushubis takshanat. Bhagavatam 1:12. Diverting even a little of one's attention toward Krishna and activities in Krishna consciousness immediately enables one to achieve the highest perfection of life. This is the purpose of the Krishna consciousness movement. Lokasyat janato bidbangs chakre sat satvata samitam. Bhagavatam 1:7-6. The secret of success is unknown to people in general. And therefore Srila Vyasadeva, being compassionate toward the poor souls in this material world, especially in this age of Kali, has given us the Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam Puranam Amalam Yad Vaishnavanam Priyam. Bhagavatam 12:13-18. For Vaishnavas who are somewhat advanced, or who are fully aware of the glories of the potencies of the Lord, Srimad Bhagavatam is a beloved Vedic literature. After all, we have to change this body. Jatata dehantara prapti. If we do not care about Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, we do not know what the next body will be. But if one adheres to these two books, Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, one is sure to obtain the association of Krishna in the next life. Tyaktva deha punar janma naitimam iti sorjana. Therefore, distribution, shall I repeat that? Therefore, distribution of Srimad Bhagavatam all over the world is a great well for activity for theologians, philosophers, transcendentalists, and yogis. Yoginam api sarvesham, as well as for people in general. Janma labhak parak pungsang ante narayana smritihi. Bhagavatam 2.1.6. If we can somehow or other remember Krishna, Narayana, at the end of life, our life will be successful. Text 12. Yogis may undergo severe austerities and penances for many births by practicing yama, niyama, asana, and pranayama, none of which are easily performed. Yet in due course of time, when these yogis attain the perfection of controlling the mind, they will still be unable to taste even a particle of dust from the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. What then can we describe about the great fortune of the inhabitants of Brajabhumi, Vrindavan, with whom the Supreme Personality of Godhead personally lived and who saw the Lord face to face? Purport. We can simply imagine the great fortune of the inhabitants of Vrindavan. It is impossible to describe how, after many, many births of pious activities, they have become so fortunate. Text 13. My dear King Parikshit, therefore there appeared a great demon named Aghasura, whose death was being awaited even by the demigods. The demigods drank nectar every day, but still they feared this great demon and awaited his death. This demon could not tolerate the transcendental pleasure being enjoyed in the forest by the cowherd boys. So this is the point. If you're not a devotee, then you have to be envious of Krishna. And that envious of Krishna will push you to do anything. Therefore you can think, how is it possible that the people of the earth now they are doing what they're doing to the earth and to one another? The answer is simple. It's very simple. They're demons. They're envious of the Supreme Personality of God, and their nature and what they like to do, where they take their pleasure, is turning everything upside down. The laws of nature, any order, any authority other than them, they want to turn it upside down. That's what's actually happening on the earth today. So even though the Amazon forest is burning down in front of everybody's eyes, where we get 20% of our oxygen, by the way, for the whole planet, and even when the world leaders are freaked out and they get together and say, okay, we'll donate, the leader of the country says, no, this is an insult. Are you trying to say that I can't run this country properly? Therefore, it says here that this demon could not tolerate the transcendental pleasure being enjoyed in the forest by the cowherd boys. So when you see somebody vehemently objecting to what you're doing when you're out there distributing books, it's the same thing. And you should just be like the cowherd boys and just say, hey, Krishna, he'll protect thee, and keep on distributing. Purport. One may ask how Krishna's pastimes could be interrupted by a demon. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur answers this question by saying that although the transcendental pleasure being enjoyed by the cowherd boys could not be stopped, unless they stopped the transcendental pleasure of their various activities, they could not eat their lunch. Therefore, at lunchtime, Aghasura appeared by the arrangement of Yogamaya, so that for the time being, they could stop their activities and take lunch. And it was like that every day, both when they had to take lunch and when it was time to go home. The demons would appear every day, so they could stop doing what they're doing and eat lunch. And so they stop doing what they're doing and go home and satisfy their mothers and fathers and the elders. Therefore, at lunchtime, Aghasura appeared by the arrangement of Yogamaya, said for the time being, they could stop their activities and take lunch. Changing varieties are the mother of enjoyment. I'll repeat that. Changing varieties are the mother of enjoyment. The cowherd boys would continuously play, then stop, then again enjoy in a different way. Therefore, every day a demon would come and interrupt their sporting pastimes. The demon would be killed, and then the boys would engage again in the transcendental pastimes. Text 14. Aghasura, who had been sent by Kamsa, was the younger brother of Putana and Bakasura. Therefore, when he came and saw Krishna at the head of all the cowherd boys, he thought, "This Krishna has killed my sister and brother, Putana and Bakasura. Therefore, in order to please them both, I shall kill this Krishna, along with his assistants, the other cowherd boys." Text 15. Aghasura thought, if somehow or other I can make Krishna and his associates serve as the last offering of sesame and water for the departed souls of my brother and sister, then the inhabitants of Brajabhumi, for whom these boys are the life and soul, will automatically die. If there is no life, there is no need for the body. Consequently, when their sons are dead, naturally all the inhabitants of Braj will die. This is the mentality of a demon. Text 16. After thus deciding, that crooked Aghasura assumed the form of a huge python, as thick as a big mountain and as long as 8 miles. Having assumed this wonderful python's body, he spread his mouth like a big cave in the mountains and lay down on the road, expecting to swallow Krishna and his associates, the cowherd boys. Text 17. His lower lip rested on the surface of the earth, and his upper lip was touching the clouds in the sky. The borders of his mouth resembled the sides of a big cave in a mountain, and the middle of his mouth was as dark as possible. His tongue resembled a broad traffic way. His breath was like a warm wind, and his eyes blazed like fire. Text 18. Upon seeing this demon's wonderful form, which resembled a great python, the boys thought that it must be a beautiful scenic spot of Vrindavan. Therefore, they imagined it to be similar to the mouth of a great python. In other words, the boys, unafraid, thought that it was a statue made in the shape of a great python for the enjoyment of their pastimes. When you kids, you see a tree becoming something. You'd go into the forest and see a castle, and you could go into the tree and play like you were in a castle. This is where it's coming from. Purport. Some of the boys, upon seeing this wonderful phenomenon, thought that it was in fact the python, and they were fleeing from the spot. But others said, "Why are you fleeing? It is not possible. that a python like this is staying here. This is a spot of beauty for sporting. This is what they imagined. Text 19. The boy said, "Dear friends, is this creature dead? Or is it actually a living python with its mouth spread wide just to swallow us all? Kindly clear up this doubt." Purport. The friends began to discuss among themselves the reality of the wonderful creature laying before them. Was it dead, or was it actually a living python trying to swallow them up? Text 20. Thereafter they decided, "Dear friends, this is certainly an animal sitting here to swallow us all. Its upper lip resembles a cloud reddened by the sunshine, and its lower lip resembles the reddish shadows of a cloud." 21. On the left and right, the two depressions resembling mountain caves are the corners of its mouth, and the high mountain peaks are its teeth. 22. In length and breadth, the animal's tongue resembles a broad traffic way, and inside of its mouth is very, very dark, like a cave in a mountain. Text 23. The hot, fiery wind is the breath coming out of his mouth, which is giving off bad smell of burning flesh because of all the dead bodies he has eaten. You ever seen videos of pythons eating something? They can actually swallow a whole cow or a whole alligator. I saw that clip where a python was swallowing an alligator whole. Then the boys said, "Has this living creature come to swallow us? If he does so, he will immediately be killed like Bakasura without delay." Thus they looked at the beautiful face of Krishna, the enemy of Bakasura, and laughing loudly and clapping their hands, they entered the mouth of the python. Now that's fearlessness. Purport. After talking about the terrible animal in this way and that way, they decided to enter the demon's mouth. They had full faith in Krishna because they had experienced how Krishna had saved them from the mouth of Bakasura. Now here was another demon, an asura, Agasura. Therefore they wanted to enjoy the sport of entering the demon's mouth and being saved by Krishna, the enemy of Bakasura. Text 25. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who is situated as Antaryami, the super soul in the core of everyone's heart, heard the boys talking among themselves about the artificial python. Unknown to them, it was actually Agasura, a demon who had appeared as a python. Krishna, knowing this, wanted to forbid his associates to enter the demon's mouth. 26. In the meantime, while Krishna was considering how to stop them, all the cowherd boys entered the mouth of the demon. The demon, however, did not swallow them, for he was thinking of his own relatives who had been killed by Krishna and was just waiting for Krishna to enter his mouth. So these are not ordinary people. These demons had been coming to kill Krishna and they weren't coming back. Anything could happen to them. But these were not ordinary. These were great yogis and great mystic, personalities. So they understood. Agasura understood, this Krishna, he did it. Therefore I'm going to kill him. And just waited for Krishna to enter into his mouth. And we'll stop there. You're coming tomorrow night, right? Okay. You'll hear the rest of it tomorrow night. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Vrindavan Leela Krishna Ki Jai. Or Premanandi. Hare Hare. Okay, now we've come to our wonderful open mic program. We have a mic here that moves around the room like a mystic bumblebee and can capture the reflections or discussions or questions that you might have from something that you've heard tonight. Hare Krishna. Yes, Radharman. Start us off.
Maharaj, I wondering if you could comment on this, because if I'm not mistaken, Prabhupada wrote these purports practically right at the very end of his stay with us, and it's amazing how many times just in that reading he emphasized the importance of the reading and distribution of Srimad Bhagavatam to Vaishnavas, devotees. I was wondering if you could comment on that.
Well, I was in the room when he said, just go on discussing Srimad Bhagavatam among yourselves and everything will remain clear. And then there's a purport. I don't remember, it's right around in here somewhere, maybe it's in the next chapter. In one purport, he says almost the same things, almost word for word. So that confirms what you're saying. But all you have to do is read the books and read the purports to get the idea. Chapter 13 was the last chapter that he purported. But no one should think that, and there are devotees who, when they get to that chapter, then they just turn around and go back to the first canto again because Prabhupada didn't do it and therefore it's not worthy of hearing. But it's not like that. Prabhupada wanted us to hear the whole Bhagavatam. And, his followers completed it very nicely. We can say maybe it wouldn't be as good as Prabhupada's, that's another thing. But they're ecstatic. The rest of the 10th canto, the 11th and 12th cantos are ecstatic. It's a fallacy to think that Srila Prabhupada, if he could spread Krishna consciousness around the world, he wasn't capable of empowering people, his disciples, to do things wonderful. That's a mistake. That's actually not glorifying Krishna. I mean, glorifying Prabhupada in a special way by making him the only one. That's what the Ritvik philosophy is all about. Only Prabhupada can initiate. Only Prabhupada, and no one else is qualified. It's an insult. It's an insult, Prabhupada, that he can't empower any one of his disciples to do something. I mean, I worked for 5 years with Gopi Puranananda Prabhu, who was one of the team of 3 devotees who finished the Bhagavatam on behalf of Prabhupada. And I tell you, he was out of this world. He was out of this world. So yeah, the devotees who finished the Bhagavatam, they were empowered by Prabhupada. It's like Satsvarup Maharaj, he wrote the Lilamrita empowered by or commissioned by the GBC to do that, and he was empowered to do that. Anybody who reads that book knows that even if you say there's things in it that aren't completely historically accurate, the effect of that book and the details and the way it's written, it's a classic masterpiece literature. Biography of Srila Prabhupada. If you read Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's many verses in which Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami describes his condition. Couldn't see, couldn't write, couldn't do anything, and yet he kept on writing. And he said, this is a great wonder. Even he couldn't understand how it was going on. Then we saw Prabhupada, I saw Prabhupada myself with my own eyes, lying in the bed, unable to move, even unable to move his body, could not turn or do anything without assistance. And Jayadvaita Maharaj was right there holding the microphone to his mouth. And he was dictating purports that were then transcribed. And according to Jayadvaita Maharaj, who was his chief editor, there was practically nothing you had to do to them. They were perfect. And it was interesting because, Prabhupada wanted his books edited, The first volumes of Bhagavatam he brought over. The English was very difficult to properly understand for an educated person. And I don't think he couldn't have spread the movement like he did with that English, in that book, although there were power to do it. But therefore he set up his editing department and inspired devotees to edit and then trained them. And then when the first ones who didn't know what they were doing, basically, kind of fell by the wayside, Jayadvaita Maharaj took it up and he glorified him many times, both in writing and in his own words, in front of eyewitnesses, and exalted his effort. One time, Devamrita Maharaj was in Los Angeles. It was during the two-month marathon to finish the Chaitanya Charitamrita in 15 volumes of it in 2 months. 15 volumes in 2 months. That's not possible. It's never been done. It's not possible, actually. And when Ramaswara and Radhaballabha, who were on the morning walk from Prabhupada, told them that's what he wanted to do, they said, Prabhupada, that's not possible. Prabhupada immediately stopped and he said, impossible is a word in a fool's dictionary. And then he just kept on walking. And they were like standing there, like trees or something, completely bewildered how this was going to happen. And Ramaswara said, when Vaisheshika Prabhu wrote the Our Family Business, and I edited that book with him. We spent a couple of years on that book. And Ramaswara told him when he interviewed him about that incident, Ramaswara said, as soon as Prabhupada said that and moved on, and we were looking at each other, completely bewildered, immediately ideas started coming into his mind, how it could be done. Immediately. And it was done. But anyway, during that time, one of the things that they kind of like demanded of Prabhupada, that in order for us to do this, you have to stay with us. So he agreed. So he stayed there for 2 months while they were doing that Herculean task. That means from a raw manuscript to a publishable manuscript, including all the paintings, in 2 months. 15 volumes. Anyway, you may not be able to comprehend if you've never done a book before, but those of us who have done books, it's not possible. So then during that time, Prabhupada would from time to time come in to the BBT, offices, just to encourage the devotees. So one day he walked in, and everybody, of course, stood up, paid obeisances, and then stood up like this to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada sat down on the chadar, which was behind the desk that belonged to Jayadvaita Swami, Jayadvaita Brahmachari at the time. He sat down, and then he just looked around, and he announced, Jayadvaita means parampara, just like that. And then he walked out. Everybody was completely stunned. And then another day, Jayadvaita Maharaj brought in a whole stack of papers which were proposed edits, adjustments to the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And they put it on the desk of the, copy editor. And they gave it to Prabhupada. And everyone expected that Prabhupada wanted to go through every change because this was first canto of the Bhagavatam. It was the one that he brought over with him from India. It was, the law book for the next 10,000 years, which Rameswar also heard Prabhupada say in a car coming back or coming to or fro the LA temple to the airport, or from the airport. And, but then Prabhupada sent it back the same day, or the next day, with a covering letter. The cover letter said, whatever Jayadvaita Maharaj does, I accept, I have full confidence in him. So this whole, you may not even understand this, you all maybe not hear about these things, but this is going on. There are devotees who are trying to, concoct some, to make some, I don't know what the word is, question, whether or not the editing was done properly, and questioning the posthumous editing. But I was with Jayadvaita Maharaj, staying in the same room with him in Vrindavan in 1977, the month before Prabhupada left. And Prabhupada had indicated he wanted a list made of all the English mistakes or adjustments that needed to be made to make it clear and forceful and clear. And Prabhupada had every opportunity during that month to tell Jayadvaita Maharaj not to do that, and he didn't. He never took that instruction back. So that was Jayadvaita Maharaj's service. And just recently, I'm engaged in keying into the database the most recent changes to be used for the next publication, the next printing of the Bhagavatam. And Jayadvaita Maharaj found this one error in the Madhya Lila, chapter 25, text 43, in which one of the words in the verse said atheistic, and it was supposed to be theistic. Because everyone knew, because it was done so fast, everyone knew. I talked to Gopi Purana, I talked to Jayadvaita Maharaj, I talked to Devamrita Maharaj. Everybody knew that this was going to have to be gone over again, because it was just done so fast. But Prabhupada, why did Prabhupada want to get that book out so fast? Does anybody know? Dimmock, who was the person in University of Chicago who was in the chair of the chief authority of the Gaudiya Vaishnava studies in the academic world, and he was working on his translation of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Prabhupada wanted his to come out before Dimmock's. That was the impetus, the original reason. You can look it up. Chaitanya Charitamrita. Hand me that last volume of the Madhya Lila. Right there, that one. Yeah, that one. Okay, I'm going to test you. I'm going to read this. You know about this, so you can't answer it. Okay. You already know about it. You'll spoil the thing. Spoil the fun. I'm going to read you this purport. No, it's a verse. It's actually a verse. 25:43. Ready? Now put on your thinking caps. The atheists, headed by the Mayavadi philosophers, do not care for liberation or Krishna's mercy. They simply continue to put forward false arguments and counter theories to atheistic philosophy, not considering or engaging in spiritual matters. Shall I give you another chance?
Mm-hmm.
You would like to hear it again? There's a glaring error in this verse. And guess who found it 35 years later? Jayadvaita Maharaj. The atheists, headed by the Mayavadi philosophers, do not care for liberation or Krishna's mercy. They simply continue to put forward false arguments and counter theories to atheistic philosophy, not considering or engaging in spiritual matters.
Because you can't say that atheists are arguing against atheists. Theists
Yes.
must be the ones that are proposing.
No, the atheists are putting forward false arguments and counter theories to theistic philosophy. Not so literally. There's one letter off in the whole verse. One letter. You want to appreciate somebody like Prabhupada appreciated Jayadvaita Maharaj? After 35 years, he found that.
What's the Bangla? What's the Bengali?
Paramartha vichara gela kari matrabada kahan mukti paba kahan krishnera prasada. Parama artha vichara, discussion on spiritual matters. Gela has gone. Kari, we do. Matrabada, only argument and word jugglery. Kahan, where? Mukti, liberation. Paba, we shall get. Kahan, where? Krishnera prasada, the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Prabhupada's translations explain things in a way that we can understand verses that we could not understand if we literally translated.
Yeah, it would be difficult to get the thread, particularly because this is Sadhubhasha, isn't it? And it's not
Yes.
like regular Bengalian
Yes.
in that sense. So because it's Sadhubhasha,
Yes.
needs a different layer of interpretation.
Yes.
Even if you speak like Choli or Sugati or something, you still couldn't grasp
Exactly.
the meaning.
And that's why it's so important, that the English be edited to make it exactly what Prabhupada was intending to say. Now, in the most recent Vedabase, it's changed to the proper translation.
In one part,
Austin?
this isn't so much a question, more
No, we
an
want
observation.
reflections. We want discussions. We want reflections, not just questions.
I was thinking that there's that verse from the 12th canto is quoted, Srimad Bhagavatam, Purana Mamalam, And to my mind, this is one of the supreme expositions on the true nature of the Bhagavatam.
I think it was quoted in one of the
It was,
purports.
yeah.
It was quoted in one of the purports, yeah.
Yeah, that was what I'm kind of thinking of it,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
And it's so many verses in the Bhagavatam. When you look at them, they're explaining not only the glories of Krishna, but the glories of the literary form of Krishna as well, so that we can understand how much the Bhagavatam itself can be relished.
Yeah, that's why we recite that prayer every time, every form, because it is non-different than Krishna. It is Krishna.
Yeah.
It is Krishna in sound, just like the holy name is Krishna in sound. Rupa Goswami, in his Namastaka, his prayers to the glorifying the holy name, he says this in one of those verses. He says, O holy name, you manifest yourself in two forms. The Supreme Person you designate, and the sound vibration that designates. We know that the second form is more merciful than the first, because even if a person offends your first form in many ways, you plunge him into an ocean of transcendental bliss if he serves your second form with his voice. And the next verse, O holy name, you destroy the many sufferings of those who take shelter of you. You are the very form of concentrated spiritual bliss, a festival of happiness for Gokula, and the perfect and complete form of Lord Krishna. Krishna Purna Vapushe Namo Namaha. Again and again I bow to you.
Yeah, it's just amazing. And it's like, this Bhagavatam is so dear to the Vaishnavas, but specially made for the Paramahansa Vaishnavas. Yasmin Paramahansam Ekamamalam. So it's not, it's no ordinary literature, there's so many. So many literatures are there, but as you were saying earlier, I don't know, maybe before. Oh no, we were talking earlier back in Folkestone that it's the cream of Vedic literature, and that the analogy is that the cream always floats to the top.
The creme de la creme.
Exactly. So succinctly put.
Yes, Dial.
There was one bit in a purport to verse. Which verse was it? Verse 711. It said that the Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavatam, is the easiest way of directly approaching Krishna. Does that mean then that we have to be clear about? Do we have to be clear about our intention when we approach the Bhagavatam? Because sometimes when I read the Bhagavatam, then sometimes it's very easy. Like you take a lot more in, and then other times you might be reading it from like a point of view of trying to understand it with like your intelligence and things. I'll understand it with my intelligence, or do we have to like make sure? How do we make sure that our intention is clear when we read?
Well, the Bhagavatam is as my Pandit was bringing up, starting up. It's the summum bonum of everything. It's the cream. It's the fruit of all the Vedas, and it's not different than Krishna. So whether you have the right intention or not, whether you understand it or not, it works. If you hear it, it will bring you to Krishna. But depending on how consciously you read it, it will reveal Krishna more and more, to the degree that you are in the proper consciousness. So therefore Prabhupada used to tell us that the chanting of Hare Krishna and the hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam and the devotional service of these two things, the book Bhagavad and the person Bhagavad, are both the means and the ends at the same time. It's the means to achieve the end, and it's the end at the same time. But the difference is you won't perceive it as to be the end in the beginning, even though it is. So depending on your consciousness, depending on your intention, you will be able to perceive that it is the end, not just the process for attaining the end. Just like you take a medicine, an active medicine and a potent medicine, if you take it, whether you understand it or not, whether you understand how it works and all these things, it works because it's a potent medicine. So this is the same principle, only transcendental, potent medicine. It will work whether you intend it to or not, or whether you understand it completely or not. But at the same time, like if the person's taking the medicine and then doing all nonsense, at the same time, the doctor says, now take this medicine and don't eat this and don't do this. So you take the medicine and then you do that and you eat that, then you're not going to get the same result.
Does that also mean then that based on the results that we get from reading the Bhagavatam, does that affect the results that we can, would you be able to, whatever results you've achieved, if you become distracted, does that mean that if you go out on the street and you give someone a book, would they be affected by that?
Of course. We get affected by the association. We're not, of course, because the beauty of our movement and the beauty of our good fortune is that, Srila Prabhupada is the founder Acharya, and he insisted on being the founder Acharya. That term was never used by anybody except for the four principal acharyas for the Adi Gurus in the beginning of Kali Yuga. Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, Vishnu Swami, and Nimbarka, they were the founder acharyas, which means they were the acharyas at the beginning, relatively the beginning of the Kali Yuga, within the first 2,000 years of Kali Yuga, who brought together and revised the teachings of the four sampradayas. So, but then Lord Chaitanya appeared to each one of those, according to Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He appeared to each one of those acharyas and told them that I'm going to take from each one of you your teachings. I'm going to take 2 points, I'm going to put it together, and we're going to have, a unifying, conception and movement. So then, very interestingly, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who much later on revived Krishna consciousness in India, practically single-handedly, Lord Chaitanya's movement. And Bhaktisiddhanta after him, the ray of Vishnu that he prayed for, then developed it and then empowered Prabhupada to go to the West. But neither of them either used the name for themselves or allowed anybody else to use the names in relationship to them. But Prabhupada not only allowed it, he insisted that whatever the International Society for Krishna Consciousness was in print, whether it be on a flyer or on a advertisement for a program or on a letterhead or on a business card or on a book, wherever, it had to have Founder Acharya A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. This is we don't have it direct. Prabhupada didn't say direct. That means that he will be the Acharya for Lord Chaitanya's philosophy when it all comes together, and the four sampradayas come together into one. It's not directly said, but there's very powerful evidence that will happen at some point in the future. And in the Bhavishya Purana, there is a statement that in the future, all the four sampradayas will come together into one. So yes, Prabhupada's writing and his, like we were talking with Nimai Pandit just now, the purports are so inconceivably deep and profound, and they put philosophical concepts that we shouldn't be allowed to ever enter into without hundreds and thousands of years of austerities and penances and study. And we're just getting it right from Prabhupada's lips and from his books, like immediately. It's amazing. So therefore, whether your intention's perfect or not, whether you're together or not, if you convince people to take these books, they will get the benefit. Of course, it's all the better if you are pure yourself and you have the right intention and you speak to them in such a way to convince them to read the book seriously and take them seriously. That's all the better. But I was saying the other night, I have personal experience when I touched Prabhupada's books for the first time. I got 2 books from 2 different sources, completely unrelated to each other, and I was on top of a mountain, living in a little village with 100 people, trying to get away from everything. At that point, 1972. When were you born? 1999. 72. That's 27 years before you were born. And one of the persons who gave me the book got the book in a used bookstore in the center of Mexico. And it was the only book in the English language in that store. And that person was my wife at the time I was married. She went to Mexico, so I went with my friend to Europe. Anyway, so she said, oh, he might be interested in that, because I had this little stack of books, and she would always watch me reading these books, but she didn't know what I was doing. She had no idea, just a simple girl. She didn't know any of it. She said, maybe he would like this, so she purchased the book and brought it to me. And 5 or 6 days before that, my landlady had gone down off the mountain to get provisions, because you couldn't get everything that you needed in that place. And she got stopped in a parking lot in a really dinky podunk town, and she wasn't interested at all. She was a 70-year-old Christian mystic who was living up there for the same reason I was, trying to, realize Jesus, And she had no interest whatsoever, but then she thought of me, and I'd only met her once before in my life. Or maybe he would like this. So I got these 2 books. I put them in the stack of the other books, in the bookshelf. didn't even look at them. Then I went to work. I was working night shifts at a gas station just to make ends meet, because we were. And I took those books, and it was nighttime, just early morning. Took those books out, looked at them. They were the same author. Impossible. That was not possible. Not possible. And I just immediately, tears started flowing out of my eyes, and I started to shake. And Prabhupada made me a devotee. Just like that. Never looked back. A few days later, we went to San Francisco to get questions asked, because Prabhupada's so humble in his purport. You never say, I'm the guru. He never says, I'm the guru. Now you should. He never says it. He's so humble. You can't get that he's your guru from the book. You just know that you need a guru from the book. So I went up to San Francisco because we found the address in the magazine that came with the Ishopanishad. It was Ishopanishad and Bhagavad Gita as it is, the abridged version, the Macmillan abridged version. And so we went to San Francisco out of our way, 400 miles out of our way, and Prabhupada arrived on the same day. In a few hours from arriving there, I was sitting in front of Prabhupada. And I looked at him, and that was it. This is my spiritual master. Fell on my face. That was 47 years ago. So this is not ordinary. These are not ordinary books. And that person who distributed that book, or who somehow or other the book got to that, used bookstore. So don't ever think that this person isn't going to read the book or whatever. It doesn't make any difference. Each one of these books has got a name on it, and it'll get to them somehow or other. Even if they stay there for a long time and the grandchild picks the book up out of an attic, and you don't know. We all got books. We all who didn't come to Krishna consciousness by somehow or other, coming in contact with Prabhupada's books. No one that I know of. So that's the perfection, to go out and distribute Prabhupada's books. There's no better thing you can do. Gentlemen, I'm going to stop now, with your permission. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. Transcendental distribution of Srila Prabhupada's books ki jai. Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. See you tomorrow night. Same place, same station, same time. Hare Krishna.